Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to a not so sunny Belfast. A bit of a poor day here in Belfast, but that's what we get. The backdrop here we're working with is a beautiful city hall and some new offices we've just taken there in the main square. Today we're looking at another element of SME business debt, excuse me, and the impending, unfortunately, recession on whatever form that takes. We've recently undertaken a couple of seminars there on personal guarantees, bankruptcy, Spanish properties, and it's part of a series that we're doing and spreading the word. It's what we do, it's what we've always done, and unfortunately I always do it, this precursor, if you like. We're sorry to hear what's going on in the economy, but it's what we do. So we're going to deal with an issue today that's becoming more and more prevalent as people start to go back to work. And we're going to be covering the following issues. FRI leases, the current toxic environment in every sense, be it mainstream media, be it information from government, whoever, and the way the economy is going. The legal processes that we think are going to be, in the nicest way, used, and the landlord's position. This is an anti-landlord. If we're acting for a client or on an individual basis, excuse me, the Belfast national anthem in the background, this isn't them against us. We see landlords in a really bad place. What I will add just at this point, we have, I know we have solicitors, valuers, barristers, any number of other professionals. This isn't overly technical. There are some technical aspects, but primarily it's to get across the general picture and what we think should be happening. If we offend anybody, I sincerely apologise. That's meant by some kind of gripe about solicitors, but I'm talking in the main rather than individuals. So that's what we're going to cover here, and we may as well crack on now. We're just passing the clock. So that's the position we are here in terms of what we do. So little advert. This is us, Belcomp, and we also have a sister company, Property Solutions, which deals properties in Spain primarily. But we dealt with cases in New Zealand, Canada, Cyprus, we do a bit, and we help people that unfortunately from time stuck with foreign property debt, put your teeth in, which is tricky enough, but we've got great legal teams to support us in our work, and we're very successful in that field. To the extent that we're now talking direct to head offices in Madrid, Malaga, and Catalonia. Little thing we do here, please, if you do get the chance to help the NPCC, there's a slide there above. We're going to send you a link afterwards. If you could contribute £5. NSPCC, as with all charities, are struggling. Obviously, they're not top of the Christmas card list, but Christmas gift list. And if we can make any contribution, it's great. And they really do need the help, because the worst thing we talked about last week is that it's going quiet out there, which is not what they like. They've got many challenges. Any help you can give them would be great. Not required, but if you could, that'd be fantastic. So, in terms of what we're doing here today, we issued a blog last week which said that FRI leases are the devil's spawn. Now, the first 4 points here are almost a little bit historic, and then we start to look at what's going on in today's real world. So, if we typically look at any FRI lease, they're definitely old school style. Hugely, as a tenant, inflexible, and sometimes the landlord, if they're covered by various banking covenants. They're punitive, and all terms are one way or the other. They're nearly like mini franchise agreements. If you send a franchise agreement, the franchisee would do this, the franchisee would do that. It'd be the same with most of the old school FRI leases. They've been the basis for years of investment strategy, so that you look at the legal parlance and the form of the FRI leases to make it as copper bottom as possible, as strong as possible, so that you ensure that the tenant is absolutely nailed to the floor in terms of their responsibilities. Yes, there are some the other way before our legal friends start, but to all intents and purposes, in today's modern world, they are not fit for purpose. Obviously, what is going on now is a massive change with the backdrop of COVID-19 effect on the economy. Demand is going or gone. Nobody knows how this is going to pan out. We're going to do a section later, technically referred to as the Mystic Meg section, which some of the older people will know about. And we're going to have a little bit of a suggestion of where we think the economy is going and how it's going to pan out, but particular reference to leases. We have a lot of people that are trapped within these leases and literally don't know which way to go. They roughly follow in line with the consultant statistics that are issued in the sort of at-risk group. But what we're finding more and more are, yes, retail has been struggling, but that's really ramping up. Hospitality is shot because of obviously the restrictions, quite rightly so, some may say. Franchises, again, a massively inflexible type of business operation. They're struggling terribly. Gyms obviously have been subject to huge scrutiny, and there's been a lot of publicity about those, what they can and can't do. If you nearly have the toxic mix of a gym franchise, which we'll refer to in a minute, that they basically have no chance. Massively relying on footfall to get their members in, keep them there, but as importantly to get the site up. And then the new working from home syndrome, where we've got businesses here, major businesses in Belfast that aren't going back to their offices until 2021. And the effect that's then going to have on office letting is going to be massive. And also the requirement for offices is generally going forward. Google are talking about not getting anybody back to 2021. Facebook, all the top tech guys, we've all learned that we can work from home. And there, from my angle, there was a concern and a fear of that working from home, but our team have performed admirably, as I think most people have. Most people have engaged and adopted it well, and we move on. So, in terms of the axis, if you like, and we call it watch this space, when the landlords and the tenants start to fall out, that is when statutory demands will cover the land. It's the cheapest, quickest way to get someone to pay attention and try and demand money for them. We've experienced that here in Northern Ireland after the crash of 2008, 2009. It's the quickest way to get anybody to the table. Be very careful what you wish for. That's the main thing there. So, as we say, we see them as a devil's spawn. Bit dramatic, but if there isn't some form of moderation and flexibility on both sides here, it's going to be very, very difficult to deal with going forward. And give Rishi his due, he's extended the recession out. So this is going to take 3-4 years to pan out. So if we move to the next slide, please. Hello. Which gives a tech issue. Maybe it's just me. I don't know. I'll go and find out here. Apologies. CVAs, used and abused. I make no apologies for that phrase. If whoever disagrees with me wants to do anything about it, CVAs are used and abused by the multi-site retailer particularly, and especially those that have been developed over time with venture capital. There's a venture capital model there that we talk about, Debenhams. That's being sold, resold, floated, refloated, CVA, everything else going on. There was, I can't remember the retailer the other day, but it's changed hands 5 times in the last 6 years. All it is, ramp it up with debt, asset strip, clear the money, big dividends, pay out, move on, resell at higher price, hopefully. So this is only open really to multi-site retailers, which is something we'll deal with next. So I used the phrase that CVA is a new IVA. IVAs, individual voluntary arrangements, were developed by the Conservative government back in, I think it was 86, on the back of the recession that was going on then, to help businessmen and women get out of the debt that was accumulated then. That then has been taken on, that product, IVAs, and now it's a huge market with, I think there are hundreds of thousands of people stuck in IVAs. Different argument, but CVAs were developed to help businesses through. They are now being used and abused, as I say there, and it's becoming a very well-trodden path. Any number of times you pick up the FT or whatever, nearly on a daily basis now we're talking CVAs being announced, and as soon as you hear the word restructuring, that's where they're going. And the other one that's coming more prevalent again are pre-packs, as they look to renege on leases, renegotiate leases. Two what I think pretty ugly ones are TM Lewin, the shirt manufacturer that sold to a venture capital firm, and they have decided to get rid of the retail model full stop. So into CVA, sack all the leases, hit all the trade creditors, and start again as an online operation. Totally legal, but not great. And then Go Outdoors, who are owned by JD Sports, they've decided to go down a similar route and use the statistics, and again, fully legally, to manage to renegotiate all their leases. And there are many, many more to come. Smaller operators with PGs, this is a no-go, because if one refers to the lease again, if there is a PG on there, if you renegotiate or get rid of the lease there, obviously your PG kicks in on two accounts. If there's going to be a rental shortfall and or undoubtedly within the lease there'll be provision for some sort of event of insolvency, which is CVAs. So that's our angle on CVAs. We deal mainly with SME, so it's not necessarily the biggest issue at the moment. So, as we say there, for SMEs with PGs, there's no chance. Again, repeating ourselves, FRI Leases, very prescriptive what they allow the tenant to do. And it's understandable from the landlord's perspective that when somebody wants to take on a lease and they're using a limited company, most likely either something very low net asset value or a newly incorporated company, the covenant is poor. And they look then to obviously get that supported by a personal guarantee of some form, be it the director, the husband and wife directors, whatever it may be. And yeah, it's a great thing when you're signing up for a new business and getting everything going, but you may not get that lease, similar to when you take bank funding without the support, of a PG. So the PG set very often with the owner of the business, sometimes even worse with a relative, somebody who believes in the dream, what they're trying to achieve, everything else, and say a mother, father, uncle, whoever helps them. They sign up because they think to be of decent net asset value. Should the business fail, at least be reneged upon, then somebody of value can be sought and the money switched out. The options are limited in terms of SMEs, where they can go here. And this is where we come to the place where business is in a massively changing world. And various words you have to use one letter for. The B word, bankruptcy, does not want to be completely ignored. It's a good negotiating tool, and it's not always to be afraid of. If you have to regroup and go again, really simple and easy to say, but we do this day in, day out. So if you have a situation, we had a case the other week where a gentleman had about half a dozen loans with various tech finance, we call them, funding circle and alike, and he was not going to get through this. He went bankrupt, we helped him through it, and it was the right route. It takes a hit on his credit rating for 6 years, but in a year he'll be out of bankruptcy and away he goes again to do whatever he wants to do. Be it going to paid, you can still go to paid employment, you can still earn money, but this is going to become more and more prevalent as the stats develop. And then you've got the backdrop there. If the landlords are looking to do this to clients and see them through to the end, it's how they then replace that tenant on the backdrop that somebody coming to look at that property, be it offices, shops, whatever, and they know that they're very aggressive in their approach. That's going to affect demand, which isn't going to be good anyway in the next 3 to 4 years, in our opinion. So SMEs with PGs, very little chance in terms of CVA. Yes, we've been preparing this webinar for a week or so now, and it was almost, I sent an email to our marketing team yesterday because the FT, and there's a link in here a bit later on, did a report on commercial property and leases, primarily on turnover rents. Very good. The link's there. Use it afterwards. Not as good as this webinar, but it's the link's there, and they're talking about how it's done, the objections, both sides. So I'll commend that to you, but they just copy it. So on that point there was that graph, sorry, which showed that the rent collection levels there are obviously under a lot of pressure. And you look how that's increasing. It's obviously starting, hopefully, to when we get business back in earnest with fewer restrictions, hopefully that's going to flatten out and come back down. Key point there, which you raised at the top there, which I'd forgotten about, is the two sides of the coin. So you've got the tenant that is struggling. Yeah, get that. You've got the landlord once he's rent. To anybody, but anybody. Then now, if you're typically in business there and you have paid your 2 quarters, you get into a mode where, why am I paying that? And we non-payers, as we say there, learn how not to pay. Okay? Obviously, you've got to survive, but it's very important that there is some control here. Rishi saying you can't issue stat demands and put people under pressure for whatever period the Coronavirus Act covers. Helpful to start with, but it's not reality. if the business is struggling, if it's something that's got to be faced up. I'm going to go on to a slide in a minute about Dan Kennedy, and he's an American guy who's experienced many recessions, and he's quite quicker people face up to things, take the pain and move on, the better it is. This is going to be brought out of the depth, I think, coming. So landlords flipping it round. Now this is advice rather than as per that threatening title. Be careful what you wish for. You have a property, it's not the greatest economic climate out there. It's, you know, new tenants aren't going to be there. And yes, you've got to try and make sure you cover your position as best you can, but be careful what you wish for. And this slide just gives us a couple of points that's going to be how we see it panning out, how it is panning out. So the easiest way to liven up a tenant for anybody that owes you money is issue a stat demand. The legal guys come back at me, whatever you want to do, say you need to do this, liquidate that. It doesn't matter. Stat demands are flying out the door. Not a lot of people can do because the courts are around. Here in Northern Ireland, the courts don't open again until September. In England, we know the courts are very busy trying to process hundreds of thousands of summonses. But stat demands arrive and on that 18 days, 21 days to sort it out. If you don't, you're open to bankruptcy proceedings. So that's where you are. Quick and threatening. Very important, dear landlords. Even though you may use your local solicitor, who's a great guy, and get the basics right. I'm not going to say any more to that, but get the basics right. Now, a couple of bits where we have to keep the practical commerciality right. In terms of, if I was a landlord, I would not want to give my solicitor complete carriage of the case, because the reason for any decision process they may be more led to, fancy a bit of litigation here. No apologies to solicitors at this point. If we fancy litigation, that means more fees. Key here is to make sure we understand the position. This is where I said it's got to be give and take here, where the tenant is, where the landlord is. Okay? If you decide to bury that person in terms of a bankruptcy petition and bankrupt them, you lose control of the whole case. A trust, you may think they have assets, they cannot release them. Today's world won't be easy, their credit rating up there. On bankruptcy, you lose complete control, and you will not hear on that case if they've got assets for possibly 2 to 3 years, and not get any income. It's going to get harder and harder that side of things, because obviously assets are going to be sold in today's environment, etc., etc. So be very careful. It might be, if you want to rattle a ministry petition, but the day that person goes bankrupt, you've lost complete carriage in that case. And then you've got the backdrop of relets. Good luck to that. Okay? Whatever period you want to take. This isn't oh, the end of the world is nigh. It's realistic. It's what's going on. We get 20 to 25 inquiries a week, and not many great calls. So we are where we are. This is trying to bring a bit of practicality to that back. So landlords, be careful what you wish for. This is a case we came across. Again, it shows where FRIs are a busted flush. So you've got an investment model here with a man that had a property in Yorkshire, and he had a mix, a very nice mix. He had a high street bank, retailer, and he had an upstairs that used to pay over the top rents, but that's cool, that's covered in the yields. So varying covenants, like we say there, and across the board, the bank and the value at the time put a 6% yield on the rental flow of 225,000. He borrowed 2.5 million to buy this property, and obviously, he had to give a PG. That was what's required. Obviously, it was great rental yield, 3.8 million nearly, etc., etc. Then 3 years ago, it started to unravel. And again, copper bottom, 25-year leases, 15-year lease upstairs, etc., etc. So this is what happened. The retail organisation, I think it's a warehouse company, they went to a CVA, got out of it. They threw that lease back at them. This was the one he had hoped was all okay. We had the lease had 3 years to go on it, and HSBC started to have a talk about it and everything else. And then they spent £270,000 on a refurb of the bank, and that seemed to suggest they're in for the long term. Might have to look at the rent a bit, but they got to the end of that lease, and obviously the way finance and tech has gone, this is a market town in Yorkshire, not great demand really. They gave back the lease. They ended it, even though we were under a little bit of confidence that with the 270 spent on that refurb, they're looking for the long term. Then to cap it all, the call centre just did a run, literally up overnight moved and gone. Personal guarantees out there, the man's worth nothing, and it's just completely collapsed. This is going to unfortunately become more and more prevalent to go along. And this is why I keep saying you've got the two situations, tenant and landlord. So it's an important lesson. The bank is still over 1.8. There's no rental stream. They're jumping up and down. Our clients are going to be fairly hung out to dry here. Got some assets, but they're still over 1.8, and the auctioneer is suggesting it goes in at 900 with the hope of getting 1 million. I can't see it in a year of Sundays as is. Maybe it's got some opportunity, decent square footage. I think it's about 20,000 square foot, but limited parking. So what else you can do there, I don't know. But this was a copper-bottomed investment. Everybody believed it. The lender believed in it. The client definitely believed it. The valuer believed it. Everybody in the old world style of these types of leases and/or investment basis has been caught out because of the speed everything's moving today as well. Again, reiterated, FRI leases, today's modern world, don't work. A recent example around here in Belfast, just down in Donegal Place there, is Eason's, who are a chain of newsagents in Ireland, took over a W.H. Smith lease, and they're not going to come back. They closed, they're not going to come back. So that may revert back to W.H. Smith. I don't know if they still got a master lease or whatever it might be. But that's an example where it's happening at the top level of the business. Again, we're SMEs. This is the sort of level typically we deal at, but if it had a zero on the end of it, it wouldn't matter. It's the same sort of scenario. So investment model broken. Strange phrase this, opportunity pivot with bankruptcy. Touched on it slightly earlier. I'll talk you through this example because this is, if we don't take more pragmatic views of things, and it needs transparency both sides, these sort of things will happen. And now we've got a man here who is stuck with an empty unit he will not rent in a year of Sundays. So perfect storm, as we said earlier, a gym franchise owner. So in that context, what we're saying is someone takes a franchise, they pay their franchise. Everything's set up in terms of equipment. Here's our finance company, get in there. Here's our fitter, they obviously get overcharged, overpriced, etc., and off we go. And it's a simple move. Get the footfall, get 1,200 people straight away, keep on top of that, add this, that. Look brilliant on spreadsheet, brilliant. But when it started to struggle slightly, we were stuck in a franchise model, no room for maneuver, and then consequently, the business cannot operate. So our client had negotiated a lease whereby he did have a break clause. Even if he broke it now, there was a bit of contention there with the solicitor. We believe that he would have not been able to avail himself of break clause because he would broken the term a bit prior to that. So he left himself open to, I think it's about 750,000. But we'll work on 125,000. He owed that. The landlord was incredibly aggressive into the property, as was his right. That's cool. And straight away, issued a stat. Okay, so we sat there. We spoke to the solicitors. That's my play hardball. Get that, cool. But there's a little bit of common sense here. And then we said, this is where we are. Okay, asset liabilities. Then where our client was. No. And eventually we had to say, right, okay, you need to control what's going on here. This is out of control. These guys aren't going to play ball. He had other £80,000 of debt, mainly with that equipment we talked about going in there, and £30,000 of personal debts, because as the business struggled, he took on credit card debt and had to work through it. At home, his share of the equity was £70,000. The other half was owned by his wife, and we settled that about 11 months after the bankruptcy at £40,000. His wife had to find that, paid it. So in terms of that, he had the debt level there of about 235,000. If we had the ability to speak to the landlord and find a way through this, a bit of rent free, turn up and do whatever, he may have survived. But we gave him the advice. The option is you fight it. But we're struggling here. Keep control of your destiny, take urgent action, get on with it, sort it. So he actually said, when we finished the case and his good lady was able to pay the 40,000 to the trustee in bankruptcy, he said, I thought you were nuts when you proposed a bankruptcy route, and thought absolutely not. Now he sees it as best thing ever. He is now an online trainer with little on overheads, doing well. I wouldn't say making a fortune, but he's doing well, happy, not got all the burden of a lease property and loads of kit. But this attitude will prevail, right? This will become more and more prevalent. It's easier to go, the basic premise is, right? Somebody's asking for debt. How much you owe? What have you got? And that attitude will prevail. And that's what bankruptcy is for. It's there, sure, to knock somebody's lights out. Hopefully not on the basis you just want to teach them a lesson, but more to make sure you recover the assets for all the creditors, or it's there for the debtor who is under debt pressure and needs to protect himself. And that's what was used here. It was the right advice, 110%, and the client did it. And I'm saying it's happy, he's still going to home. So that's what I'm saying. The opportunity comes, it's got to be used. It's not ignored. Again, using one letter, the B word mentioned very early, told them what could go on here. From that 40,000, very, very little will ever get back to that. Very little. It's a couple of grand at their lot. And he's still, what are we now, 18 months on since this, he will have an empty unit for a time. So opportunities, strange, but they're there, they choose the right. So Mystic Meg, a couple of people, I by no means am I any sort of economic like that. We're at the crappy end that goes on in business. And obviously we keep abreast. We're not soothsayers, we're not going in the low tonight, but we're often asked, where do we think things are going? We don't know. Nobody knows. Boris has got no notion. Rishi just throwing out cash and he's trying to, all he's doing is extending the recession. So the furlough will come to a place, unfortunately, mass redundancies, which will be ongoing as businesses limp into next year. The middle to end of next year, you've got the bounce back loans coming back into play, and you've got the corona businesses, Bibbles and Sibbles. And that's going to come into place. There's been other direct study. That's going to online still beats apart. Amazon there taken. We know that. We've just had to detox. We're doing lockdown in England there from the ding bomb of the Amazon driver from something like that. Traditional businesses are on the head, and it's, you know, we know where the roads are. We all know that. The other one is a U word, unprecedented, much abused, but something I really don't like, but it is totally unprecedented. We've got banks that we're talking to. We've got Santander yesterday in the UK writing off 11.9 billion. This is massive. It's going to be bad. But I will end on the Dan Kennedy thing. Okay? What we do need before that, we've got to be creative. We've got to look how we will use a town centre when it's empty. This here is like a market town. This is a city of about 500,000 people. In the centre here, it's like a market town. There are nobody in town. The big banks aren't back in town. The bank will have a square here, but nobody. So we've got to look at how we do that. Town centre needs to be used for residential, whatever for. You know, we've always said in England, we scream about, well, there's no how to start using the town centre, start getting going. Otherwise, it's become debtors. Another huge thing in the back, which is nothing to do with economics or, and it's slightly a moral, personal brand, right? Mainstream media. Absolute bloody disgrace, absolutely. But we won't get out of that until we start seeing some green shoots. They can grab hold of and take that to the next year. As is, we're saying we're not sending people, right? They are every day, every channel, platform, and the world. On this little slide, right? Dan Kennedy, who I referred to earlier, is a guy. He's got excuse my French, got a book range called No Bullshit, and picks up a subject matter, a little bit, very American, but he's quite good. But what he has said here, right, quite funny because I was reading it the other day. We will always survive as long as we're quick to react and take the consequences of our position again quickly. So it's keeping control. If we sit there and fester, SMEs, small business women and men, if you sit there and fester and wonder what will happen, it's going to slowly happen, and it's not good for you. We are not weak. People are not weak. Business women, good businessmen and women. This is a massive hit for sure, and it's what you're going to do from here. Okay, if you've got personal debt exposure, take it on. Don't sit there. Don't sit and wonder. Right? Take the consequences and move on. The Americans are great on it. We had the last recession now. Chuck Lehman Brothers in the bin, right? Off we go. Let's throw loads of money around. Let's sort out Fannie Mae. Let's do this. Let's do that very quickly. slightly in our mindset as English and Irish, we love to fester a wee bit with the bad news and everything else. Move on, but move on quickly. It's so important. That's a key thing. Luke Johnson wrote in Sunday Times the other week. He was saying that unfortunately before here and COVID-19, there were businesses, to use the vernacular, who had pre-existing conditions. They will go, end of, and unfortunately, very good businessmen and women will go as well. But on that personal level and where we are in the economy, we go back to basics. We find out where we're going to live, how we're going to do it, how we're going to keep ourselves, etc., etc. This has been a wee while coming, this recession, but it's here now in earnest. Nobody could foresee, unfortunately, the backdrop of COVID-19, the consequences, especially on our elderly population, what would stem from that. But we're here now in terms of the economic. So that's how we see things, and we're moving on to the next slide, Amelia. So FRI, RIP, gone, never going to happen again. If anybody signs up for an FRI lease, they are not wise. Okay. Again, we've got the link there, which we've done through LinkedIn because I have to download it. You can only use it so many times, so that's there if you want to have a look at that. It's a useful backdrop, even as an SME, because they're talking very much so about the chains again, multiple retailers and deals, but it's good to know what the current vogue is, if you like, and that's what's going on there. So that's all about turnover rates, and they've got to be the way forward. Got to be sharing success. Okay, make sure that there is more transparency. It doesn't want to be quite as antagonistic in terms of the world going forward. The FT is going, well, do we have to put our online rent in, our online sales into the rent? I don't know, but be reasonable. If it suits the purpose, you've got no expenses there. It's we're on pictures. The continual banging of heads, the landlord, the tenant, will not work going forward. It'll take time. I'm not deranged enough to think that this will happen tomorrow, but the Grosvenor Group, that's the Duke of Westminster Group, are massively engaged in this. The old Intos and the Hammersons of the world are under massive pressure because they're too slow to move. They got stuck on the FRI business model and the investment model, far too slow to react. Grosvenor Group, because they are massively wealthy in their own right, the Westminsters have that ability to do it, and they're doing it really well. So any of these bits are great backdrops, especially if you've got to go and negotiate that lease and the consequences of it for SMEs with that PG exposure. So little snippets there.